Hey everybody, welcome to the Fire It Up with CJ show. Today we're going to be talking to David Howard, who is the author of this wonderful book, Heed Your Call. And that's exactly what he did many years ago when on Memorial Day weekend, of which he's celebrating the anniversary of that time, he fell into the abyss. It's a point where all of us actually stop striving to being that person that everyone else wants us to be, and we become really the people that we were meant to be. And so I thought it'd be really interesting to talk to David about his hero's journey and what it feels like to be on his anniversary weekend of that event. So welcome, David.
Thanks, CJ. Thanks for having me.
So what does it feel like? How long ago was that? You said about 20 years ago?
Yeah, about 20 years ago, I had sort of a personal crossroads where effectively everything I thought I was supposed to be, all of the things that I had learned, adopted, sort of proceeded with in my life, just wasn't working for me anymore.
Yeah.
So, for your listeners, I grew up in sort of a upper middle class Midwestern home, culturally Jewish home, supportive for the most part, and that was my known world, and so in my known world, you either became a lawyer or a doctor or an executive, and I subscribed to that, and I did all the things I needed to do that well, great grades and impressed teachers, and had the right student government positions and internships and
Right.
jobs, and I think like a lot of us, I just sort of put the blinders on, went heads down, and said, this is what life is,
Yeah, this
and
is what I'm supposed to do.
it's what I'm supposed to do.
Yeah.
This is what the world feels is right for me.
Right.
And so, I found myself 20 years ago, really pretty much to this day,
At this moment, probably, right? Because you said someone walked into your office right around now, right?
literally. And, I found myself having achieved what, what I had been told was success. So I was in this big, prestigious law firm, the mahogany desk, the assistant, the business card, salary, 401k, the whole thing. But I was miserable. I felt lonely. I felt sad. I felt disconnected. I felt tired all the time. And it was really this sort of schizophrenic, like incongruence. And it was confusing, at best. And it was like, wow, wait a minute. I always was told that if I checked these boxes and arrived at this place, then I had made it.
Right.
But in reality, suddenly I found myself feeling pretty terrible.
Yeah.
And for about a year, I just ground it out. I said, well, this is what life is supposed to be. Life's not easy. And so who are you to think that you should have joy in your life? Who are you to think that you should feel connected or happy or in flow? It's called work.
Right.
So, that old kind of Protestant work ethic, you put
Right.
your shoulder into the plow and you come home at the end of the day and you're depleted and tired. I thought, well, I guess that's just what life is.
Yeah.
All the while, this voice inside me was sort of going from a whisper to louder, saying, no, David, this is not what you're supposed to be doing. Life is more than toil and struggle and hardship and feeling disconnected. There's another path for you. I fought that voice. I would do whatever I could to quiet that voice.
Yes.
And those things range from, wine or, social media or the things you can do to distract yourself. And really what it ultimately culminated in, and this is in the book, Heed Your Call, but I'll share with your listeners a part of it. One of the many nights I was at the law firm until late hours, I walked in to use the bathroom and looked over, and on top of the toilet paper dispenser, there was like an institutional size roll of Preparation H that someone had like literally rolled up and squeezed out every possible drip out of.
Wait, this is in the public restroom for public use.
This is in my law firm's restaurant.
Oh, see, I didn't get that when reading the book. Okay, so this was like just in case you need it, and I assume all of you need it, so we have the
I
preparation
think
H
someone
after.
had been in there earlier and was like suffering badly. And I looked at that and I thought, you know what?
One, I may need to use this. And
I'm
then...
not going to be that guy. I'm not going to go down that path. And
Wow.
and I literally, was at that moment that I just said, you know what? I know it's likely that I'm going to disappoint terribly my parents, past teachers, neighbors, colleagues, friends, they're all going to think I've gone crazy. They're all going to think that I've wasted all of this time and money getting to this place, that, you know, I may go broke, I may be homeless, I may be cast out, but I'm not going to keep doing this.
Yeah.
I'm going to shift things. I'm going to make a change. It was one of the hardest things I ever did, but it was also this amazing turning point where I think the universe finally said, thank you. You know, we've been trying to call you and the line has been busy perpetually.
Right.
And you just hung up the phone and now we can actually get through to you.
Yeah.
And from that moment, I was heeding my call and things really started to flow.
Okay, so it was again 20 years to this day, because as the book said, on Memorial Day weekend, someone came over and said, "Hey, I know you're like, hey, what are you doing for the weekend? Don't answer because I'll tell you what you're doing." Plop, like just gigantic case file on your desk, and it was at the. I guess it seemed like the tail end of the weekend where you then ran into your kind of visual reminder that this was the path that you're going on. So it's been 20 years.
Yeah.
What does it feel like looking back at that moment? Because it was on Friday evening. It was literally right around now that someone came over.
You know, I mean, you know, looking back on it, I'm filled with gratitude for having had the opportunity to actually get to a place that was so incongruent with my nature, my soul, that it forced me to finally wake up to what would be living an authentic life.
Right.
You know, it forced me to start to think about who really am I, and what is it that brings me joy, and what am I great at, and what do I love to do. And the last 20 years, you know, certainly it's a path, right? And there are days you fall off the path and days on the path, but has generally been filled with an incredible amount of abundance and personal meaning and satisfaction and success and amazing people and learning. And even to this day, you know, I'm just filled with a huge amount of gratitude. And, you know, the interesting thing is it's available to all of us. You know, this is here for us in every moment. I mean, we can choose to start to listen to that phone that's ringing down the hall. That is our soul. That is our deepest desire. We can choose to start to open ourselves up to living a life more from that place.
Yep. Well, you know, I think that's interesting too, because I think one of the things that you have in your book, and that I think is hard when I talk to clients, is they don't know, what does a call sound like? You know, is someone going to be calling me on the phone? Well, maybe. I mean, for me, it was followed by, I would walk down the street and all these black cats would, you know, stroll in front of me. It was one after another, and I thought, what the heck?
Amazing.
What is happening? So it was literally a visual thing that was happening, like yourself, right? You saw the preparation H, and that was a call. It was kind of seeing that you thought, that's unusual, and it kind of triggered something. And then sometimes it's just kind of a physical thing, I think, that people actually get the call because they feel so ill. Like you were feeling ill at the time, right?
I think you've articulated exactly. I mean, I think what happens for us is, you know, the universe wants to get through to us. And let me just make a quick kind of pause, you know, for your listeners. I am, you know, I'm not a spiritual sort of woo-woo out there guy, right? I mean, I think Heed Your Call, the book, hopefully builds a bridge between, I'm a person who's involved in commerce. You know, I get up every morning, set my alarm clock, go to work, and get stuff done. I'm driven. I live in the world of commerce. I live in the world of capitalism, and I embrace a lot of that. But I'm also a person who wants to have purpose and meaning in my life, and who believes that we can use some of the spiritual tools that are out there for us in commerce. And so again, it's and, not or.
Right.
So, you know, when I speak to you and your listeners about this idea of heeding your call and listening to the universe, I don't want people to tune out and say, oh, here's another woo-woo out there spiritual cat.
Yeah, go get your tarot cards read. That's not what you're talking about.
Exactly. And so what I'm talking about is all of us. You know, there is that place inside of us that just wants to get through to us. You know, it wants to express itself. And we spend so much time and energy trying to push that aside, that if we just give ourselves a bit of time to open up to it. So you asked the question, what does it look like when the universe starts calling you? And for you, it was a visual indicator, as, you know, black cats in your path. For me, it was not feeling well, and then seeing these kind of visual reminders like preparation H and the other. Right. You know, I think there are some constant themes, but, you know, what I will tell you is the longer you ignore this call, the louder the universe will get.
Yeah.
And sometimes, and you hear these stories and they're sad, stories like, well, I had a, full-blown heart attack, and that's what it took for me to start shifting my life.
Yeah.
Or my marriage fell apart and I ended up divorced and my kids are gone, and I finally woke up and realized I got to make some changes. So if we ignore it, ultimately it will manifest, and it will manifest either in physical illness or a major life kind of catastrophe, or potentially just in this latent, constant depression and anxiety that we end up living with. And in writing Heed Your Call, I spoke with some end-of-life caregivers as part of my research, and uniformly the theme that I heard that was most common as people reached their last days, the biggest regret by far was, I lived my life in service to someone else's idea of who I should be. I played it safe. I mailed it in. I lived from a place of fear and scarcity, not from a place of passion and desire.
Wow.
And so I personally would rather go for it and try to live in alignment with that call and maybe have it not work.
Yep.
And just to take the easy road, lock down some job that makes me feel like crap every day, and decide that that's what my life is going to be.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you have to figure out, you have to finally make a determination on how much is your life worth to you.
Right.
To you, right?
Got one shot, And the other thing I want to say, because I know some people, and I'm like this, the ego will chime in and say, well, I can't quit my job tomorrow, or I can't, radically shift everything overnight. And I agree. And I'm not suggesting that people do that. What I'm saying is they're little like micro adjustments, right? So you can start to open yourself up to the possibility, right? So maybe you're an accountant working in a big 5, accounting firm, but really you've always had a passion for coaching or teaching. So, coach a team, or go become an adjunct professor for one class at a local college. Feel it out. See what it feels like. If it's right with you, what'll happen is doors will start to open. You'll say, oh my gosh, I taught this class and it was amazing, and I met the provost of the university or the chair of the department, and they want me to do more next year. And it will be an organic process that will feel very sort of in flow.
Yeah.
And it doesn't require you to sort of say, for some it might, but it doesn't have to require you to say the Band-Aid and I got to rip it off,
Yeah.
It can be incremental steps.
Yeah, and you know what? I think the thing to remember, and that people listen to this and they'll feel like, oh, okay, I just have to suspend disbelief and think that this is true. But it is true for the clients that I know that have finally stepped into their real calling. Stuff just happens. They always wanted to be an artist. Oh my God, someone called me to do a show, and I've never done a show before.
Got it.
Stuff like that happens. I mean,
and
it will happen. The doors will open. You just have to have faith.
Are right. And again, one of the things I really tried to write in Heed Your Call is real life examples of what you were just speaking about. Because like me, a lot of your listeners, I'm sure, can read books like The Secret and others that are out there.
Right.
And it's easy to say, yeah, that's interesting, but it's a lot of theory and it's a lot of mumbo jumbo and spiritual sort of woo-woo-ness.
Right.
What I'm suggesting in Heed Your Call is exactly what you just said. There are real world examples of this.
Yeah.
Heather, my wife, and I, with Oregon Chai, the company that we started, her brilliant idea and thoughts around this product, everything about that story and the trajectory of that business is in alignment with what we're talking about here. Dave's Killer Breads, another great example of this. I am surrounded by businesses, business owners, entrepreneurs, and people who have subscribed, knowingly or otherwise, to the ideas outlined in Heed Your Call with great success. Real world examples, not theory, but grounded in actual sort of facts.
Yep.
And so it's there for us.
Okay, and in the next segment, we're going to be talking exactly about how you go about doing that. It's one thing saying, like, oh, yeah, you can do it, but I think that there is a process that you actually step someone through so they can come into that recognition of being, yes, I'm actually doing my calling, I'm operating in a non-woo-woo way, in a commerce way, I'm making money, and I'm doing something that's good for the world. And I think a lot of us are skeptical, so in the next segment, we're going to be talking about how you go about doing that. Thank you so much. We have have David Howlett, who's talking about Heed Your Call, his newest book. Thank you so much for being
Thank
here.
you, CJ.